Okay, we're a little bit late to the party, but I thought it would still be worth chatting through some thoughts on the New Balance Balos, which hopefully should be going on discount pretty soon. I've done about 50 Ks of wear on this pair right here, so we're going to chat through it top to bottom, chat about the price point, a few competitors, and let you know whether there's something else out there which can do the job, or whether this is the shoe for you. Starting off with some specs on this model, we have 38.5mm of foam in the heel with a 32.5 stack in the forefoot, so a 6mm drop right there. We've got a PIBA EVA blend, which is still coming under the name Fresh Foam X, 20% PIBA, 80% EVA, fairly soft, fairly springy. I would say it is an upgrade over the standard EVA foams, but it's definitely not a super foam, not going to compete with the likes of a full PIBA or TPU or TPEE. It is just a slightly nicer version of an EVA. In terms of the weight with that EVA PIBA blend, no plates, no shanks, nothing else going on. We're coming in at a weight of 268 grams, which puts it at about 20 grams lighter than the average daily trainer in my men's size 10.5. Starting off with the upper of this shoe, we have a few strange elements which come together in a package which is okay. We have got a fairly stiff heel counter with a nice bit of padding back here. We have got a stretchy knit tongue which is fully gusseted in, wrapping over the entirety of your midfoot, which does contribute to a nice lockdown, but is a bit of a contrast, bit of a juxtaposition to the stiff heel counter and the kind of unstretchable, I guess, stout upper material. It is breathable and it does have a decent level of flexibility, but absolutely zero stretch to it whatsoever. So yeah, a bit weird to have such a stretchy tongue paired with that. And then moving into the toe box, because of the lack of stretch and because of the way that it's shaped, we have a weirdly shallow toe box. So not necessarily narrow, it doesn't really cut in either side. Width is okay. It just doesn't have a lot of height to it, which means that by the time you fit your toes in the end, it comes up feeling a little bit short. So for myself, I went true to size in a men's size 10.5, and I felt like it was okay. I did notice the presence of this reflective element on top, just because of how snug the toe box was sitting against the top of my feet. Could have happily gone with a size 11, and I don't think I would have had any slippage. That is something to note if you're checking out this shoe. True to size, if you have a standard to narrow foot, if you have a slightly higher volume foot, go for a size 11. But if you have a wide foot, I really wouldn't be jumping into this shoe. I think it will be a little bit too shallow, a little bit too snug, probably not going to work out, especially if you have a wider, high volume forefoot. Overall, as I mentioned, few different elements coming together in a bit of a strange package. I guess it works out okay in the end, but if I was going to make a few changes, it would be to add some stretch to this upper mesh so that it doesn't feel as restrictive in the toe box. A little bit of extra volume here, and then we'd have an upper which is, yeah, fine, I guess. So getting a pass, but few weird choices, I would say. Moving down to the midsole, we have this PIBA EVA blend, which is arranged in a highly cambered geometry. You'd expect this midsole to be really rocketed all the way from the heel off through the forefoot, but it doesn't really ride in that way, although it is, yeah, shaped very drastically. I think it relies more on the compression of the midsole foam to bring you through the shoe rather than the kind of strict geometry of the foam. I think that's partly down to how flexible the shoe is. It doesn't really have the kind of stiffness to really guide you through, especially once you start to put some force into it. It is definitely more of the kind of compression of the foam. It is a really nice smooth ride. I do like the way that this PIBA EVA foam absorbs your weight, gives you a little bit of compression, and then a nice healthy spring back. Not to the level of a full super foam, mind you, but definitely more than your kind of standard EVA. It's smooth, it's reliable, it's consistent. I really like how this shoe feels for daily training paces. I find it to be, yeah, one of those shoes that you can just set and forget. I think it's also contributed to by the outsole, which is a rubberized EVA. Kind of gives you this smooth, silent transition onto the road. And I do think the heel bevel is also contributing to that as well. So however you're landing, it's a kind of gradual adaptation to the road, I suppose. And it ends up coming off as, yeah, a really smooth, seamless ride. I think the lighter weight and a little bit of extra spring back from the foam does lend itself to some up-tempo daily training paces, but I definitely wouldn't be taking this for speed sessions. I don't think that this is the super trainer that it was marketed as or hyped up as. I'm not really sure whether that was New Balance or people around them. But yeah, it is definitely a upgrade over your standard daily trainer. I think this is, you know, sitting alongside shoes like an Evo SL, although it is priced a little bit higher, which we will chat about soon. So yeah, nice and comfortable, smooth ride, little bit of extra spring back, light enough to pick up the pace just a little, but I do think the softness and the flexibility in the forefoot, especially for myself, does hold it back from being a shoe which you can rip intervals in and still feel, I guess, structured and, what's the word, powerful. I think you do lose a little bit in the softness of the foam, so yeah, not quite that super trainer that it was hyped up to be. Quick mention to the outsole, as I said, it's a rubberized EVA with 2 patches of real rubber where it really counts, on toe off and then on the lateral heel. I think the grip has been okay. On dry surfaces, it's been fine. Wet surfaces, it's not the best. I would say it is a little bit slippery, and the durability is definitely not going to be as good as a full rubber outsole like on the 1080. But I would just point out, as I often do, that I do think this is strategic from New Balance. Giving you the rubberized EVA contributes to that softer, smoother ride. It's not as slappy, not as clunky. You can often nuke a running shoe by chucking on a big slab of rubber. So yeah, I'm okay with it if it means that the ride is a lot better underfoot, which I think it is. So yeah, don't go choosing this shoe for gravel running or for, you know, never-ending lifespan of the shoe. Choose it because you're chasing that smooth, comfortable ride, using it on some smooth footpaths, and I think you should be okay. Coming around to the price point here in Australia, this originally released for $300, which I think is a little bit overpriced. I would like to see this for $270, and I think we'd be talking. After all, it's not a full super foam. It's nothing crazy. It is nice, it is pleasant. Don't get me wrong, I've had a good time in this shoe, but you know, $270, even then, you still got the NeoZen for $260 with a supercritical TPU, Evo SL for $240. I do think that New Balance and a few others do need to keep up in terms of the innovation of some of those supercritical foams, especially if they're going to be pushing the price point up to that kind of $300 mark. It's nice, it's pleasant. Does it deserve that full price point? Probably not. If you can pick it up on discount for $240, around that kind of zone or below even, I think it would be a really nice pickup. I do think it is a slight upgrade over your kind of more standard daily trainers, what I would call your Nova Blasts or even your Rebels or just your standard Ride or whatever else. It is an upgrade over them, but other super foamed trainers, it's not really standing up. It doesn't have the same kind of response, same kind of versatility. So yeah, $300 for myself. It's not quite there right now. A couple of quick fire comparisons in my experience, mind you. I know that some of these shoes are definitely quite popular with a lot of people. Didn't like the Nova Blast much at all, which should be quite a similar shoe in terms of unplated, softer foam, a little bit of bounce back. Nova Blast just didn't seem to give me that kind of spring back that I was chasing. Felt a bit mushy, felt a bit dead, I suppose. So the Balos for myself offers the spring back that I was craving in the Nova Blast, bit more energy, bit more spring, and a smoother transition. I definitely much prefer the Balos. I would personally be happy to spend an extra $60 to get the Balos over the Nova Blast 5. That's how much I didn't like that shoe. Pretty similar feedback for the Rebel V4 as well. Felt like that shoe was too soft, felt like I bottomed it out. Does have a wider fit, which will accommodate more feet. But again, I would still pay the $70 extra for the Balos, which has more spring back, doesn't feel as mushy or dead. Yeah, those two shoes just didn't seem to work for me, although they seem to work for a fair few others. Getting into some shoes which I actually like though, I'll compare it to the NeoZen, which I think is softer, a little bit more radical, definitely a little bit more unstable, but it has a big, gooey, booming bounce from that supercritical TPU. The Balos is definitely more close to a standard daily trainer with a slightly nicer feel. It's not kind of matching up to those super foam categories, but I do think with the more traditional upper, bit more of a standard fit, and I guess also with a bit more of a standard feel, it might be a little bit more approachable than the NeoZen for some people who might not be a fan of the knit upper, might not be a fan of the kind of overwhelming, I guess, performance or softness or radical feel that it has. So there could be a bit of point of difference between those two. Wider fit in the NeoZen as well with the knit upper, bit long in the toe box compared to the shallow, more dialed in fit of the Balos. The Evo SL from Adidas is a firmer shoe with more of a defined rocker than the Balos. The Lightstrike Pro does a good job of holding its structure, giving you that nice smooth roll through with a bit more of a gutsy bounce. I think the Light Strike Pro is definitely making the shoe a lot more versatile. Use it for long runs, easy runs, pick up the pace. It has the guts to go with. Whereas as I mentioned with the Balos, I think this is definitely more locked into everyday daily training runs, pushing into a bit of tempo stuff. But when it really comes to pushing the pace or going long, I don't think that this Piba EVA foam has enough structure to really hold on. If you're going to be paying full price, the Evo SL is still one of the best out there right now. The Balos is definitely lagging behind a little bit. Coming down on discount, $220 versus $240. Could be an argument for the Balos if you've got a big rotation and maybe you have some shoes that you already cover over the Evo SL and you just want a soft, comfortable, a pleasant daily trainer. But yeah, if it's one of your first shoes and you're looking for overall versatility, don't go for this one as a super trainer. Go for the Evo SL instead. I think you'll be much more impressed. The final one is the 1080 V14 from New Balance, which I was actually a pretty big fan of once I broke it in, 30 Ks in, softened and settled the foam out a little bit. I felt like it started to hold its structure a little bit better, whereas at the start I felt like it was a bit too mushy. The Balos is an upgrade over the 1080. I think it has a bit more life to it, bit more of a dynamic feel. The transition is nicer. I can use it up to about an hour and 10 of running compared to the 1080, which I felt like maxed out at 30 to 40 minutes for myself. Fit on the 1080 is more accommodating. I think honestly the 1080 V14 could have been the Balos. They could have used this Piba EVA foam. I don't think people would be too upset. But yeah, right now you've got pretty much a slightly upgraded 1080 sitting above the V14. So yeah, I would say for myself, I'd probably pay the $30 extra and get the Balos over the 1080 for $270. But if you're looking for a more standard daily trainer, I guess a little bit more normal, traditional, 1080 could still be a good pick with the more accommodating toe box. Bringing that all together, for me, the Balos was a smooth, soft, springy trainer, which I think works really well for daily training paces, pushing up to some shorter long run stuff, I guess, but it just doesn't quite have the kind of performance or versatility or excitement factor that you really need to be pricing it at $300 and have this kind of super shoe rhetoric around it. I think New Balance is at risk of falling behind the rest of the pack, as is Hoka, I would say, in the daily training department. I'm excited to see that they've put in 20% Piba here, but I would like to see them progress that, you know, get more of a full Piba midsole or other supercritical foams. Really excited to see that progress, but right now I think they're in a bit of a weird spot where the foam isn't quite keeping up, the marketing is getting ahead of itself. So yeah, it's a nice enough shoe, maybe marketed differently, priced differently, it would be a bit of a different story. But right now, this is one of the ones to pick up on discount, have a decent time, but yeah, maybe don't get drawn into the hype just yet.